the backside.
What up, everybody? It's Cyrus, THC Cyrus, here with Big Husky and Pacific Chief. Um, with the Vibe Tribe again. Sorry for the delay, technical issues, but thanks for everybody tuning in again. We appreciate you like always. We already got 10 in the chat. Thank you so much for stopping by. So to follow up with the Growing Up Islander series, so the first one was Samoa. The second one was New Zealand. And we had some awesome guests there. And now we have a full house today with Growing Up Islander Hawaii. So if everybody wants to introduce themselves, we'll start with Lowkk, if you want to say your name and just where you're from.
Uh, my name is Leroy. They call me Leroy Brown or the Lowkks in Honolulu, Hawaii, in Kalihi, on the east side of Kalihi, up into the East Valley, Canfor housing. Um, that's where I'm from.
All right, so good. And then Tiff, if you want to go.
Okay, so I'm Tiffany. I prefer Tiff, please, Tiff. But born and raised in Waianae on Oahu, for some people who don't know, but deep in Waianae, so Makaha, technically. And I guess I just lived up here long enough to probably forgot half my roots.
And then what about you, Jay?
I'm Jay. I'm from Hilo, Hawaii. Pretty much from the Waikea area. But I've been living out here in Vegas for like 4 years now. But yeah.
And we have a really unique situation with my boy Sonny here. So Sonny, where were you at in Hawaii?
So I was do I gotta press something to go? Or
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay. So I was born and raised in Charlotte, Texas, very small town. I ended up getting stationed in Oahu there at Schofield Barracks, I think in 2016. So I was in the military the whole time till 2011. And then when I got out, I stayed in Oahu only because my wife was going to college and she ended up finishing up her nursing. And then in 2015, we ended up moving over here to the ninth island, Las Vegas. So for me, you might be thinking, what do you have in common with Hawaii? I think the culture with Hispanics, where I come from, that when you have that tight niche, people support you. And it's always good and it's bad. It's like a seesaw. So when I was in the military, I didn't really like being around too much military because it was like a lot of ego, a lot of rank kind of like attitude. And I was more of just wanting to relax and chill out. And from the moment I got into Oahu, I remember going to one of the beaches and opening a door for somebody, an uncle, right? And as soon as I opened it, they're like, hey, mahalo. So right there and then, I didn't know what it meant, but I had the feeling that it meant like, thank you. So it was just off the bat, was like a respect factor. And I found that to be something very unique, other than what when I was getting oriented and the military to say, hey, you're a newcomer here in Hawaii, respect's a big thing. You need to watch out because the locals don't like you. And that was not the case. So when I would hear this from soldiers, I would say, hey, why are you saying what they're telling you and not experience it yourself? So I off the bat just saw things differently. Not saying that everybody was the complete opposite, but I just try to infuse like the respect factor on that. So
So for Lowkk, when was the last time you went back home?
I've been home back and forth. Uh, shit, should I say? um, I just got back like 4 years ago when the pandemic started. So I got stuck out here and never went back in Vegas.
But before that, were you always going back?
I was going back and forth,
And in the same spot, right? In Kalihi?
same spot.
Oh, okay, okay. What about you, Tiff?
Let's see, the last time I was back home was back in 2011. I went to scatter my dad's ashes. That was the last time. Yep, way
Yeah.
overdue though.
Yeah. Do you plan on going back?
Yeah, I do. When my pockets is full.
Right. Oh yeah.
Income tax.
And maybe, I mean, the last time I went back, the traffic from the traffic from Kapolei down to Mokaha was, I mean, I know it was bad before, but was even worse when I went back into the 2011. So I don't know. I hope when I do make it back home, it's better. But if not, then I guess I have to plan just like 2 extra days just for travel time from Waianae to the airport. Because that's a killer right there. It is.
Right, right. And what about you, Jay? Like, how often you go back?
So for me, I'm pretty blessed with going back home, being that our workplace gives us off for the holidays. And my cousin also works for United, so I fly for free on standby, which is cool.
Ooh.
Yeah, so I pretty much I
Oh.
go back for the holidays when we got that work break. Every year I've been back, but the only reason I go back every year is because I don't have any family up here. Like it's just me out here, just a couple of friends. So yeah, I go back kind of often, I guess. Yeah.
Into the same area, right?
Yeah, to the Big Island, Hilo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Sonny, when was the last time you went back?
We ended up going back for our anniversary when the pandemic opened back up, when they had to do what was it? I remember the news being really big on that you had to quarantine, and there was a lot of people not doing that and people were getting in trouble. So right when it reopened, and it was completely different from the way the attitudes were from when I left to going back. It was like I was still here in Vegas. It's not an easy place for people just to forget what they're going through, especially on the island, and having local or holidays come in, which is I'm one of them. But it's just like, hey, you're back to what I was saying earlier. What I would tell soldiers and anybody how I look at it. If somebody comes into your neighborhood that you never seen and they're just throwing trash, you're gonna put them in their place. And I would tell the soldiers that and other people, don't assume what it's everybody, don't generalize. So that's one thing that I knew when I went back. I was pretty surprised that I didn't see the aloha, but it's only because I didn't go everywhere, just the towny side stuff that I'd seen.
But you don't really go back to where you were living at before.
So when I was there, I was lucky that my first sergeant, my boss dude, was like, hey, you get to live outside the barracks. I don't want you living with the other sergeants. I guess he saw something in me. So I was able to live in Eva. And that's, I think, Star Market. It's what it might have been before or whatever it is now. It's before it changed the grocery store in Eva. And it was right in Mariner's Place. And then after that, I went over ping-ponging from Pearl City to Wahiwa on Ojai Street to Waipahu on Waipahu Street, across from the dojo and the school to Makali area. Like I was everywhere, especially when I left because the rent is kind of nuts. Yeah.
And because like the reason why I wanted you guys on here, because it's like different generations, different experiences. Like everybody came even though you guys are all from Hawaii, like you can't, you're all on different areas, and it's like it's still a unique experience, like what you guys were going through. So being that everybody's like a different generation or came up differently, um, for Lowkk, uh, what was like life like growing up in Kalihi?
Um, in the neighborhood it was good, but then as soon as you step out of your neighborhood, it's crazy. You know what I mean? Like I grew up with a lot of Filipinos from a I'm from a Filipino gang. I'm a gang member from a Filipino gang of Flipside Pinoy in Cali. So, you know, I was just that one Samoan guy that was always with the Filipinos. So when we go to 7-Eleven, we got to fight like all these Samoan guys from KPT across the street.
Oh man.
So it's crazy, man. So,
So you growing up there, like, you know, being where you stayed at and stuff, like,
yeah.
like what was like the, you know, other than fighting and stuff.
Oh,
like,
other
what
than
other-
fighting, everything was good. I wish it was like that now for our kids now.
Yeah.
Everything was good. And was yeah, everything was real good back then in the 80s. It was good. And just since they hit 90s, the 90s that's when it got crazy. You know, all the gang movies came out and all these new drugs and the drugs hit Hawaii, and Hawaii was the worst place that hit. So
Yeah.
everybody wasn't the same after that.
And so what about you, Tiff? Like what was it like growing up in Waianae on your side?
So for me, growing up in Waianae was actually kind of for me it was a little bit challenging because I'm Haulia. I'm Hapa. Well, I don't, it's hard to say because some people still don't consider me, even though I'm third generation born and raised in Hawaii, especially living in Waianae. They still don't, some people still never considered me being of the Hawaiian community. Yeah. So with my mom being from the East Coast and then my dad being Filipino, I grew up confused. I thought I was Hawaiian. I was like, okay, yeah, my friend's Hawaiian. I go to, you know, I went to Makaha Elementary. We had the school farm. So I grew up with all of the Hawaiian culture, not just the food, you know, but the mindset, the dancing, the traditions. I grew up that way. That's just how I was taught. And that came from the teachings and within the school that I went to. So not just family members, not just my neighbors. So growing up for me though was hard because once people found out my mom was not only was she haole, but she was also obese, I got picked on. So living in Waianae and your mom is white and then she's also one big girl and they, you know, and then I was also skinny. So I got my taste of the bulliness, and so it was challenging. I can't say I have a lot of bad moments because I have the good moments too, because I was fortunate enough that my grandparents actually raised me. And I only lived 2 minutes from Makaha Beach. So, you know, I lived in kind of like the old people neighborhood. So there wasn't much kids growing up, but I got to experience just going to the beach by myself, meet up with my friends there. Like I said, besides the bullying, it wasn't bad. But it was definitely different when you find out and you're constantly reminded, oh, you're not Hawaiian, you're white. Bro, I'm not just white, I'm fucking Filipino too. I'm sorry.
You're good.
But I'm Filipino too. But even then, they never saw past the moment people found out my mom was white and then she's obese, nobody could get over that. They had a hard time getting over the fact that, oh, your mom's white. Oh, this whole time I thought she was Hawaiian. Even still to this day, oh, I thought she was Hawaiian. Yeah, I don't have it in my blood, but guess what? It was right here. It's been in my freaking heart from the moment I was born. It's always been there. So I was actually pretty emotional and blessed when one of my old classmates, he came to me one day and he was like, hey, back when we was going Waianae Intermediate, I always knew you had a story to tell, and I want to tattoo you. And he's Samoan. And I was like, I don't, I've always wanted like a Polynesian tattoo, but because of everybody saying, oh, you're not Hawaiian enough to get any to do this. Because I used to love dancing. I used to love dancing hula. That was my passion. But when you're constantly being drilled, oh, you're not Hawaiian enough. You just a Hapa Haole girl. You give up that passion.
Oh,
So sorry, kind of like I said, this is
Yeah.
when
Let it out,
Cyrus
sister.
was like,
Let
hey,
it
can
out,
come
let
on.
it
I
out.
was like, oh yes, I have to let this go. This is one thing that's been burdening me. It's been heavy on my chest. So when my friend Fats or Martin came to me and he was like, I want to tattoo you. I was like, can I tell you my story first before you tattoo me? And he was like, please, by all means, go ahead. I told him my story and he was like, I'm so sorry that you had to go through this whole time. He's like, this whole time growing up, I knew you had a story to tell. I never knew you went through all that bullying. It was like, I was like, yeah, I hit it. I hit it really bad. Like it hurt when I went home. But he blessed me with this freaking amazing piece on my left leg, and I don't regret none of it. And I wanted to do a memorial piece for my nephews who recently passed away, and so I went back to Fats and he slammed my right thigh with another piece. So for me, it took me years to get that tattoo that I wanted, and I let him go freehand. I was like, you're telling my story, you're the artist and this is my story, and I'm telling you, and I'm putting my story into your hands for you to be the artist and transform what I told you. And I just let him freehand go for it. I trust you. You were my class. We've known each other since what, 13? Yeah. So do whatever. This is my story. Here it is. And I'm all for supporting you, but thank you for listening. And I'm blessed that I got that as a gift. He gifted me with that design because I'm very respectful, even though born and raised and don't have the Hawaiian blood, I'm still respectful of their culture. And for me to not have the Hawaiian blood flowing through my veins, to be blessed with the design that he gave me, every ink, every stroke, that means a lot to me. So I now I feel a little bit part of the community that I was grown up in, like I was raised in, was tough. And plus you're from Waianae, hello, like you kind of gotta be tough. You know what I mean? You walk around and you tell everyone, like when I moved up here and I told people I was from Waianae, they're thinking it, oh, I was like, pump your brakes, okay? We all not like that. You know what I mean? And I remember meeting some people too from like Kalihi or the KPT side, and they go, oh, why not? Or like even some girls from Palolo, but I met them up here in Vegas. None of that ever happened when we're back home, because back home, you have the different cities meet up with each other, everyone like beef. Oh, you from Waianae? Oh, yeah, I'm from Palolo. You from Waianae? Oh, yeah, I'm from Kahuku. Everybody like scrap, but then you come up here, it's a melting pot. Nobody wants to scrap anymore. So it's nice. It's a nice mesh. But yeah, growing up in Waianae was challenging. I can say that, but that's always my home. That can always be my home, regardless. Even if I go back home and somebody like freaking, they like scrap me just because I'm a holy girl. Relax. Okay, pump your brakes.
No,
I may be a little disconnected, but not that quite.
right. No, thank you for sharing that.
Of
I
course.
I've met so many people who would have like the poly tattoos, but they felt like connected and they felt like they wanted to represent. So I always respected it, because like to me it was like to be like an islander. It's a mindset, because the fact that you have those tattoos on you, and then that how you push the tradition and the culture by dancing and just learning about it, like to me you are Hawaiian, because of you the culture stays strong. Like like a culture and a people die when you stop sharing traditions and stuff like that. And I don't know too many people who are 100% Hawaiian. So like just that idea of you just doing that and pushing it, it's like you keep it alive because you do that. So definitely I'm sorry you went through that, but
Yeah.
we all had that disconnection too, with me, my brother Chief and my brother Husky. We're Samoan, but we were born and raised in the States. So people back home will tell us, "Oh, you're not Samoan. You're not a real Samoan." Like, and I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, you want to fight now? Like, oh, you want to fight now? You want to
Can.
see it? Like, but because we were born and raised here, and when I talk the way I do, and everybody's like, "Oh, you talk like a white boy," and I was like, oh, "I fight like a Samoan." So, like, it's
Mhm.
but
No get
just with your
nuts.
but with your story, like, I definitely feel it. Like but you keep it strong. Like, as far as like the culture and stuff. So definitely keep doing what you're doing. Um,
Oh, before we move on, can you, hey Tiff, can you, for our viewers that are watching, can you break it down what a haole is?
oh yeah, all the slang. As far
Yeah,
as
yeah.
slang goes,
Yeah.
everybody
Because
have
we
to
can
break it
catch
down.
it. We can catch all the,
We know what it means, but
but
Okay,
can you break
so
down?
so for the how I'm gonna put this, for what most people know a haole is, the definition of a haole, most people know as like Caucasian person. Okay, then in better terms, because we gotta be polite. Okay, we're not gonna be the white people. If you don't know what a Caucasian is, it's a white person.
yeah.
Okay, but if we're gonna go all the way back, okay, a haole is not just the color of somebody's skin. A haole is a foreigner, basically. We're gonna take it all the way back there. But if you go back to Hawaii's history, right? There was a point in time where after Hawaii was taken over, and I'm shortening this for you guys because I don't want to talk all day, and I can. But so after
Yes, you
Hawaii
can.
was after Hawaii was basically overthrown, and the kingdom was overthrown, they wanted to rid everything. Okay, they wanted to rid the language, the culture, the religion, the beliefs that they believed in. They wanted to get rid of all of that. Okay, and pretty much a lot of the language was almost lost, not all the way, it was almost lost, but it started coming back. So, but during the time it was lost, this is not my terminology now, this is what I believe. Okay, during the time it was lost, a lot of people started referring to haoles as just the white person, because think about it, who was the person who landed you know what I mean, who freaking arrived on Hawaii? Captain Cook. And what was Captain Cook? White. When the missionaries came and wanted to, teach their religion, what was that? White. So you're gonna put one haole is one white person. That's what one haole is. But from what I was told, going back in the day, a haole person is a foreigner. That's what I was told. I could be wrong though. I could be wrong, but that's what I was told. So yeah, that's one haole.
For everybody in the chat, that's a Hawaii slang 101. So write that down. Write that down. So if you ever go to Hawaii and they call you a haole, that's exactly what they mean. what the tip just called me. But all right. So with Jay, your story, what was it like growing up on your side of Hawaii?
So for me, I come from like a pretty small town, but like the Big Island in general, compared to like Oahu, our population is a lot less. So growing up, I did live in like a neighborhood where all the old folks live, so there wasn't much kids around, but luckily my cousins lived next door, so we were the loudest people on the street. We'd get the cops calling us all the time. It was fun, to say the least, that's for sure. But we were definitely some troubled kids, I'll say that much. Me being that I grew up with my grandparents, I didn't grow up with my like mom or dad. It was a little different because of the generation that like raised me, as far as like if I were to be raised by my mom, they had different values rather than from my grandparents in the olden days. You get smacked, you get disciplined very differently than nowadays. So that's why me and my older sister, we grew up with our grandparents, were raised differently from my two younger sisters that grew up with my mom. So it's a little different, but it's kind of funny how I'm hearing everybody's stories and it always results into fighting because everybody likes scrap. But that's just, I feel like that's just an island thing. It's more about respect because at the end of the day, like that's really what means a lot to everyone is respect. And it's I feel like it's just the island culture. When you talk to islanders, we come at you with respect because, you know, you're from the islands, we respect you, but it's a little different coming out here. So it was definitely a culture shock. But growing up back home, it just taught me a lot to be grateful for what I have now. And as far as if I do have kids in the future, like the values that I learned growing up in the islands is what I want my kids to have as well, for sure.
Yeah.
And for you, Jay, you actually have the Hawaiian blood in you, right?
Yeah, I got maybe like 30%, but like it's kind of tough. My grandpa is 75% Hawaiian, 25% Chinese, but like the Hawaiian blood is just, you can't ever find a full Hawaiian or like even somebody with like 50%, because that's pretty much what you need is at least 50% to qualify for Hawaiian housing. And there's barely any left. So it's like it's kind of tough because my obviously my mom's not even 50% because my grandma's 100% Japanese. So like it just trickles down and I'm like 30%. But I mean, I got some of it. I still carry on the culture. Like it kind of touched me about with the tattoos because I got a lot of tattoos as well. But a lot of my friends aren't Hawaiian at all, but they're from Hawaii and they do have tattoos. It's just, I feel as long as you know what it means and that you represent
Right.
what you carry on you, it shouldn't matter about your blood if you have it or not. Because you grew up from the islands, you learned the values, like you know what's up pretty much, you know. Just as long as you respect the culture and represent what you have on your body.
And Sonny, you touched on what it was like being in the military there, but I'll add on the question of what were the problems for you personally for when you got there? Being that, you know, Tiff explained, you know, a foreigner comes over, like what, if you know, what was the look the locals would give you for being someone who came over just for the military or, you know, and just being around town? Like what were you going through when you were
So mine was different and it was unique compared to what I seen, and that's what bothered me more than anything. So first, thank you everybody for coming in. Cyrus invited me to come on, and I thought I would be okay at sharing my perspective being somebody who's not from Hawaii, because when you're all locals from the same place, it's kind of like almost the same thing, different story. But for somebody that came from the outside like mine to have a different perspective as an outsider or Haole, as Tiff was saying, you know, like I'm fortunate that one of my first things when I heard of Haole, I ended up going to one of the beaches there. I already forget the name, Haleiwa. So where the rocks at. So when I went there, I was actually leaving. I got lucky and found parking right off the bat. I parked my Chevy Avalanche, and as I'm leaving, everybody's crowding that little turn where the rocks at, right? So when I'm leaving, one of the younger, I'm gonna say he's a kid, he ends up coming up and he was just like looking at all these people blocking the roads, and they all look military, they all look Caucasian or somebody that wasn't from Hawaii. You could just tell, you know, when you're infused and from Hawaii, like the difference of people because of the way they act, how they are. It's just very unique. More like locals are more like to themselves. They're not trying to draw attention, you know, unless they're youngsters, but it's different. So when I'm walking up to my truck, this young boy's like, oh, these haoles like act up and this and that. And I'm like, I don't know what haole means. And either way, I'm pointing like, hey, I have my truck up here if you want to leave. And I'm not saying nothing. I'm just soaking it in. And when he's talking all this stuff about haoles, he sees my license plate and it says Texas. So he looks at my plate and he looks at me and he looks back at my plate. He's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Just these people are disrespectful. And I was like, You don't have to explain to me. Like, you just taught me a lesson without me having to be the one that's a bad example, you know? And when I went in back in 2006, I don't know if they're still doing it, but from what I experienced, like I was saying in the beginning, there was seeds already being planted that locals don't want us here. And later on, we'll probably end up talking about this, but my wife was the same way when I met her. She didn't want nothing to do with me because I was military. All military is bad. They treated her girlfriends bad. And she was like, really didn't want nothing to do with me. So with a little help with alcohol and a mutual friend, I ended up keeping her buzzed for a few years, you know, and she forgot she said yes. And that was kind of the way to go. But I was fortunate enough as well. Like, I knew I didn't want to stay stuck in the military. I always liked meeting the locals. I'm from a small town. And the one thing to people's hearts more than anything, it's like, it's the opposite. Your stomach's on top of your heart. You learn the local food, you eat it, and then you fall in love immediately. So for me, it was like, I'm not going to go to the chow halls or the cafeterias in the military. I want like the real stuff. And me being Mexican or Spanglish, it's like Caucasian, Spanish, broken English, from Texas. When they told me about the local moco, I was like, I do not want to eat a crazy booger. That's disgusting. And then after a full year of probably being there, there was a place called actually, I forget the name of the town, but it's by Walmart and it's actually called the Local Moco. And one of the roommates or somebody that I had was a local, was like, you got to try this. Like, do you know what it is? And I was like, no, I don't. And he was like, I'm going to buy it. And there's another thing that goes with that too. When I ate the Local Moco, I was like the happiest person in the world. I'm a foodie. But then like a month later, I was like gaining 5 pounds per month because of the Local Mocos. And then it was just, for me, it was different. I was given these seeds of like, don't believe in locals. They're just going to beat you up. They'll set you up. And I remember going to clubs that weren't even that aren't even open now. That it was kind of funny. This story reminds me of like this big Samoan girl, me and my friend who's Haoli as well, slaps my ass, and he turns around, looks at me. He looks back, and his eyes open up. And I saw that she was way bigger than me. And I'm like, dude, she could hit me as much as she wants. Like, I don't have a chance, you know? And it was just kind of one of those things like, you get to learn to laugh and go along with things. And before you knew it, like she was buying me drinks, and I was like, all right. And that was when I fell in love with Heineken's. I got trashed the first day, but after that, it was just like Heineken's were the green grenades for me, like everywhere you go to. But it's different here on the Ninth Island, and we'll get to that later. But I had a different perspective. It was more of the outside of my bubble was watch out for locals. And for me, it was like, I think other people need to watch out and respect them and just listen and take it in and talk to them rather than just building a wall and not wanting to hear you out, you know, or even get to know you. And I find that even in Hawaii, I had a clothing brand. I called it Bad Accents, and it reflect on everybody that I met throughout my military and in Hawaii, that if you have a little bit of patience to understand somebody, you get to learn more about yourself. And that's why I ended up naming the clothing brand Bad Accents, one word, because at the time I was like Spanglish, I was in Iraq, I was in Korea. My wife is Filipino Japanese. So like I'm all over the place. And depending who I'm around, especially in person, like the pigeon could come out, some moke could come out, some, you know, all kinds of stuff. So who knows?
Shout out to that big Samoan lady who smacked you on the ass.
Yo, it was nice, man. She didn't hurt me.
She could have turned you into her wife if
Yeah.
she wanted.
True.
Hey, yo, I fit the description. I just got to shave this and let my hair down and game over, brother.
All right. So to Lowkk.
Yeah.
So what was home life like? You know, how was it at home? And what were the values that you learned while being home?
Oh, the values of being home. Shit. There's a lot of. Yeah, I was back and forth with my family. I originally grew up with my godparents. They was Hawaiian in Halava housing. So my dad was a professional wrestler. He was never there. So I mean, he was always there, but he was always on the go. He would be in Mexico wrestling, Alaska. So it was kind of hard for me. I don't, like they say, like one day I'm Hawaii, the next day I'm Samoa. So I'm confused. But same like them. I mean, the respect and loyalty to your family, the you act up, you get fussy,
Like
that kind of stuff. But
For sure. What about you, Tiff? Like, what was? I know you talked about how life was, as far as the bullying, what you were going through, but what was it like at home, growing up, and then what were like some of the values that were instilled in you, like things that you hold till today, to the day.
oh shit.
So good question. 'Cause, I have 3 kids, and trying to raise my 3 kids up here and still have the morals and the values that I grew with back home. Those two can be challenging, but I think the one thing I missed the most back home growing up was my grandfather. So I had touched, my grandparents raised me. So that's a whole nother story. Basically, my dad was the baby of the family. My mom was the lonely howly girl, whatever, gallivanting. But my grandparents raised me, so I had more of the old school upbringing, right?
Mhm.
And so my grandmother had a flower shop at the Waianae Mall. And I used to, when she would watch me while my dad was at work, I'd be like in the back. So the family shop, basically, I had that. And then my grandfather was a fisherman. So every Saturday he would go out with my dad and one of my other uncles, and they would come back and we'd have like, I think the one thing I missed the most was the kona crab, because you don't see anybody eating kona crab anymore, right? But back then my grandpa would bring home the kona crab, and thank you, babe, and the kala, they would catch kala, and that's my favorite, king. And if for those of you who don't know what kala is, it's like the gray fish with the horn, it's great when you just throw them on a grill. But every Saturday we had like, that was our barbecue. They come back from the Port Harbor from fishing, and we had kona crab, we had fish, we had rice, and then yeah, my grandparents were Filipino, but I wasn't raised with Filipino traditions. And I know Akfale was on here because he used to talk about this a lot at work, because I no Filipino whatsoever, but it was like this. I don't know, it was like pig ears. When you throw them on the grill, you dip it in the shoyu and the vinegar. Was freaking I don't know what you call that. It's a Filipino delicacy apparently, but I'm not Filipino enough to know what it is. But back home we did have beats, despite the bulliness, the how do you put it? The Saturday barbecue I would have with my grandparents, with my dad, and sometimes my cousin them will come over. But I think the best memories, I hate to say it. Well, I don't hate to say it, but nobody can deny is 4th of July and New Year's, because that's when everybody gets together. Everybody want to pop the fireworks. You get to watch all your aunties and uncles get drunk, and then as they're drinking the beer, you sneaking the little Coors Light, from the can, and you and your cousins are drinking. So, I mean, I don't know. That was my family, but that's what we did back home. When we got in trouble, we made sure we got trouble at home in front of our family. Okay, when we wanted to drink underage, I'm not condoning it, but we did it at home on our property with our family, to somebody watch us, because despite the bickering and who was getting along and she talking shit this way, no, we still had each other's back.
Mhm.
So we still looked out for each other, right? And I think that's one of the things I miss a lot about back home is, it don't matter who you fought that day, it's who's gonna have your back the following. And especially coming from Waianae, it was, let me tell you, growing up, that was a roller coaster on its own. Between the friends from Waianae and the family I had, it was like, who's your enemy and who's not? But it never came down to who's the enemy. It's who respects you and who wants to see how you handle yourself. So yeah, that's the one thing that's all I miss.
What about for you, Jay? Like, what was growing up on your side? Like, what was it like at home? I know you said that you were the loudest kids on your block, but like growing up in the house, you know, with your family and like the values that they taught you and that you held on to.
So growing up, I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty blessed with my grandparents being able to raise me and provide for me. Like the way they did, they took me in like I was their own kid. Granted, it's probably because I was the only boy. So like my grandpa had 3 girls. So he always wanted a boy, and that's kind of the reason why I got spoiled a little bit. So we had a lot of toys like dirt bikes and quads and stuff. So my cousins also raced too. So that's why we'd be getting the cops called on us, because it's like 10 o'clock at night and we're going between like 2 houses, making jumps and shit in the back, like doing shit as a kid that, you know, a lot of kids don't have the opportunity to. So I was blessed on that. But as far as like values wise, it's just what my grandpa taught me was just hard work. My grandpa would work his 9 to 5, come home, and he'd be always doing something around the house, planting shit. I don't know, like cleaning stuff, fixing cars. He'd have his own like lawn service. So we every weekend, it didn't matter if I had homework or what, I'd have to help him. So I'd have to mow the lawns, and I wasn't getting paid, but he was, you know. So it's free labor.
Free labor.
But yeah, it's all good. He just taught me that it doesn't matter what's going on, or if you don't feel like doing something, like if you want something, you got to work for it. So that's what I was taught growing up with my grandpa.
Thank you. For you, Sonny, what were like the values that you've learned being in Hawaii, like and something that you hold till this day?
Well, to touch on what Jay said, that his grandparents, and I'm sure everybody else in here probably just about, when you plan stuff in Hawaii and people talk about what they plan and what they are raising their family off of, with their bare hands, from what the ground means, the soil, from the ancestry that comes with it, up until like not just at the moment, but where it's going to go to your future. Like that to me is real tradition. Where I come from, our tradition is more like, this is where you came from, or your grandparents, but it's not deep rooted literally from, this is what I've raised. It's more of like, if you're going to work, you work to pay your bills, you know, and you get happy that way. And when I was in Hawaii, it was a big change for me. And I tell people like, this was like where I got reborn, to the fact that when I went back to Texas after several years, because I wanted to introduce everybody to my wife, because it was more like, she doesn't like to take photos. She's more of the conservative type, and people thought she was a ghost. I was making her up. So when I took her home, I went up to one of my tias, which in Spanish is auntie, which most people know. And I go up to her and I hug her, and she's leaning back. Like, what are you doing, pervert? You know, like, don't be hugging me. So I ended up, like, that was the normal thing. I thought we always hugged. And she was like, we don't hug. And she looked at Carla and was like, we don't hug here, you know, but they love you. And it's a different type of love. It's more like tough love. And there are those little things, to some people would be like, oh, okay, you're just being rude. But to me, it was like, oh, I picked this up off of being on the island. And that's where I heard a lot of, and still to this day, I see the hashtags and Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, live aloha, kilimut aloha. And then you have mana, you know, the strength. And that comes from different things, and how you respect the animals around you, because that could be your ancestors and they're telling you something. But for outsiders, haoles is one thing where they're passive towards it. And in order for you to really understand a culture, not just Hawaii, because it is a culture, it's a name and it's a title, but there's more to it if somebody just took the time to listen, rather than shut you out and then want to say that they want to come and visit Hawaii, like they're welcomed, when you're making their presence unwelcoming, you know. So for me, like, I just pick up off of things because it's things that I needed growing up. I was always in trouble with drugs and things off of before I went to the military. I didn't want to be like my relatives, even though I was doing drugs myself. I saw some cousins and I was like, I don't want to be that way if I have kids. I don't want to put money towards an 8 ball rather than giving my girlfriend $20 for milk, and I seen my cousin do this. That was arguing with his girlfriend towards his son, who is amazing. Like it's like his little mini me, and he gave his girlfriend like 2 weeks ago money for milk, and that's a kid that drinks milk like probably a gallon a day, but yet you spent several $100s on drugs and you're complaining about your son, but you want to be with your boys. And that's why I ended up joining the military. But on top of that, like I tell people, military has more drugs around it because it's a paycheck every 2 weeks, and people understand that, and it's just a different hustle. But for me, it was like you have to have the discipline enough. Like if you want to change, you have to take in something. And Hawaii was a big wake up call for me to be reborn. And I'm not trying to sound holy or anything, but there's a lot of things, even when I carry myself everywhere I've worked here in Vegas, people thought I was from Hawaii, especially when locals are around. It just comes out, the slang and stuff. And it was different. It was good. It's something that I needed, but I didn't know I needed at the time. And I look at Hawaii like it being home. I think of Texas as like, yeah, that's where my family's at. But I always look at beaches or something, and I'm like, that reminds me of Hawaii. It's not so much of, oh, that reminds me of Texas. It's like, I'm already different because my heart was invested in it rather than being in Texas and wanting to get away from it.
And so the opposite of that question for you guys, it would be, what did you learn while being out and about or like on the streets? Like, whether it be the hard way or just, kind of like how you had your values and stuff. Like Tiff said, the barbecues, Jay working hard, Lowkk just said with being hit with his godparents. When you, let's just say, when you became a teenager and life started changing, as far as, us developing as humans, and like, what were the changes you saw and what did you learn while you were on the streets? So we'll go to Lowkk first.
So the changes was kind of serious out there on the streets at the time, being a teenager. You always wanted the finest things, the clothes and stuff like that. But the things you got to do to get them. To get those kind of things at that young age. At that time, I was selling crack. I was on the streets of Chinatown selling crack. Shit, I wanted the new J's, I wanted the new clothes, stuff like that. But the value, like, it's crazy because you didn't know what to trust when you're on the street, And my best friend was about to snitch on me, and I was going to do some time. My best friend was the one that was going to turn me in at that young age.
Always the closest ones.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then this Crip that wasn't even my friend was the loyalist one, like he was loyal to me than the others. So, so at that young age, it's just crazy. I came from the housing where, we struggle. The struggle was real. The struggle was real, man. When you go to school, you like look good too. Like the JCPenney's, the JCPenney shoes, all those Gems clothes from Gems. At that age, it was only Dickies and white tees or Converse. It was the J's. But it was good. I mean, it was crazy on the street, but I don't think that it's good for anybody else. I mean, I'm just happy I made them at this age. Like at 46, about to be 47. I got shot a couple times, but I lived through it, and shit. The values of Hawaii always gonna be my home, bro. No matter what. So if I die here, I told my wife take me home.
Okay.
Even if nobody comes see me.
Right.
Just take me back home.
So
yeah.
So being that, I was saying, when you become a teenager and things that change, and what you learn on the streets, at any point, did the home life and the street life, did it ever clash?
Oh, yeah. When it comes down to reality, I always gotta go home. Sunday always gotta be. I gotta be at church. I'm Catholic. I gotta go home. I was an altar boy too at the same time. So, you know, it was always I gotta go home. Gotta go home. If not, you're gonna get leakage, you know. No, man, I still get leakage right now too, you know. Not how old you. You get, your grandpa will call that part you one time first kind. But yeah, was always classic. Was always classic. You know, it's like your family get worried when you out there on the street, so they come out there and they look for you, bring you home. You know, I never had the best life, but yeah, we went through it. You
You
know,
made it work. You made it work.
made it
Yeah.
work. Amen.
What about with you, Tiff? Like, did the home life and the values that you know everything that you learned there, but then what you were going through?
Oh
as a
yeah,
teenager?
still all the respect and like my mom always told me that, you know, don't judge people, you know, don't judge them. Just, you know, everything is a law, falls back on the law. You know, love strong. I mean, I'm a person who I love strong. I don't judge nobody. I don't care if you Maho or you know Bucci or whatever. But you know, I respect you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, I respect you all the way. I mean, I don't judge nobody. Everything is following the law and respect, you know. And I think with the world going crazy right now, I think Allah gonna make them win. Allah is what we need, bro. Love and love strong.
Yes, sir.
What about you, Tiff?
So I left Hawaii when I was 16. A lot of my classmates, my family don't know this, but after my grandparents passed away, my own parents couldn't really care for me. So I got caught up. No license, but I was hanging out with people who needed a driver. So I would drive from Waianae to Waimanalo. We'd pick
That's
up.
far.
Yeah, that's a fucking far drive. But from Waianae to Waimanalo, I drive. I take them to pick up their supplies, bring it back to Waianae. And I made sure they got back safely. We never got caught. And one person found out. Never know who this girl. She knew about me. I didn't give two shits who the fuck she was. But you know, she kind of came at me sideways, and she's like, "Oh, so you hang out with them? You going to drive them, pick up their shit, and now you guys gonna try to sell on my, up in my spot?" And I was like, "I'm not selling anything. I'm just a driver. I'm just transporting people from one end to the other because, who's gonna really stop somebody that I had the game played out? Be like, oh, they're just, if a cop pull me over, be like, oh, that's my auntie, then they're just drunk. You know what I mean? I sorry, officer, I don't want my license, but I want to forget I'm safe."
Yeah.
Who's gonna really stop somebody from saying that? So that was like my go-to. But so I started slowly getting caught up. There's a few other stuff that happened, and so finally at 16, I was like, I met a police officer. He stopped me. He goes, the way you're working right now is you're gonna end up in a women's correctional facility pretty soon. He goes, what I see in you getting caught up in, you're gonna end up putting in time.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like a big scare, but it scared me enough because that's not where I wanted my life. That's not where my grandparents wanted me. I had these dreams. I would tell my grandma, oh, I wanted to be a cosmetologist. I want to open my own shop in cosmetology. So when the officer came to me and had told me, you're going down the wrong path, I packed the only things that I could in 2 bags, and I left Hawaii, and I took a 9-hour flight from Hawaii to Rhode Island and turned my life around. And I was like, nope, my grandparents may not be with me anymore. My dad and my mom couldn't take care of me, but time to take care of myself. But no lie, it's been a while since I haven't been home, and it kind of got disconnected for a little bit, just a little. And I reconnected with my dad's family who moved to Vegas, and I moved back out with them because Rhode Island is great. not my style. It's kind of cold out there. It's pretty cold, but you know, I love my mom's side of the family too. Nothing's wrong with that. I learned a lot of stuff from them as well because I was just living the East Coast life. You know, I lived on a dairy farm out there in Rhode Island. I worked on a dairy farm. Okay, I unloaded the hill, all of the hay bales and put it on the conveyor belt, put it back up. And yeah, I know I worked. I actually worked. I wasn't out there driving, you know, transporting people to pick up the freaking pacololo. That's weed for those of you who don't know what pacololo is. Okay, but I wasn't transporting pacololo from one side of the island to the other anymore. I was putting in legit freaking work and I was not getting paid. No, because after I was putting in this work, I was helping my auntie watch her son. No payments whatsoever. That was hard work. But you know what she gave me? She gave me a roof over my head. She helped me go back into school. You know, she helped me realize that my world was not ending. I just had to look at it differently and keep freaking pushing through. And so I came back to Vegas, or I came to Vegas, I should say, stayed with my family, and my first real job, my first real paycheck was at Tropical Smoothie. I only worked there for 2 weeks and I got fired because the customer called and said, my smoothie is hot. And this is, I learned a great value about customer service, because after she told me the smoothie was hot, I told her, well, I don't know what's wrong with your smoothie because we make it out of ice. I am fired.
Customers are crazy.
I learned real quick, but it was tough. It was really tough to have to be 16, make the decision to leave my home that I knew that I grew up in to better my life at that age. 16, people were trying to, my daughter's about to be 16 in May. She's trying to plan a 16th birthday party. I never had that. I was trying to plan where I was trying to go in my life.
Yeah, I'll be a sponsor. I don't know if locals do that, but in the Latin community, we when something comes up and you need help, without saying you need help, they say, hey, looking for sponsors, and you usually ask your closest friends. And Tiff and Josh, and we're friends, we're family.
Ah, I love you, Sonny.
Me too. I'll do it for you, not for Josh though.
Yeah, not Josh.
I appreciate. Well, you gotta talk to my daughter because she lost her privileges. That's the one thing about me is, with my grandparents raising me, I never really got that like much discipline, right? Because I ran after my grandparents passed away. I was running amok in Waianae. It was I was low key. Nobody knew. Like they knew who I was, but they didn't know what I was doing because I made sure I kept that shit under wraps. You know, so when people started slowly finding out, I was like, oh shit. But that's the one thing I'm trying to teach my daughter is, you know, you are privileged right now. You're so privileged. You don't have to go through what I have to go through back then. So I pulled her birthday party from her. I was like, good for you. You're still planning it, but it's still not happening. You haven't done anything to show me why you deserve it.
Oh, she having barbecue all over.
So, but yeah, that's what I take from it, from the values, and then my teen years into where I am now.
Powerful. That's real powerful.
Oh yeah.
What about you, Jay? Well, you know, with your what you learned on the streets, like when you were, became a teenager, when things are changing, and like home life, like did they ever clash? Like did they, of course, everybody gets a whooping around here. That's just life. That's just how we all grew up. But like
the memories, huh?
Yeah.
Can hear all the trauma in this podcast we got going on here. But like growing up as me going into my teen years, that's when I started to get more like rebellious, especially towards like my parents, because I'd have to see my dad every other weekend. That was just the court ordered deal. So I'd stop going to see my dad, and then my mom I just stopped coming around when she'd be around, and then I joined basketball just for that reason, to stop going home. So yeah, I try to join anything, whatever my friends are doing, I try to do that, and then ask, oh, can I sleep over? Like I just never go home. So me, there was one point where my entire freshman year of high school, I stayed at my friend's house. I did not go home at all. It was like a question why I was going home and not if I'm going home, because I was just there all the time. Like it was a little different because I hung around with a lot of people. Like I was cool with everybody in school because like what Lowkk was saying, I wanted all the nice shit, but I started resenting my parents, and then I didn't want to take advantage of my grandparents, like I never like asking nobody for anything because what they like what my grandpa taught me, like if you want something you got to go get it, like you go do it. So I started making candy. You already know that was my high school hustle. Started selling candy. Didn't really get into the whole drugs game because I didn't want to get beat when I got home, because if they found that out, oh man, it would have been all over. But luckily the candy helped me out for a little bit, pay for my gas throughout high school and stuff. But it just taught me how to hustle really for my own work, for my own stuff, and that helped me transition, I guess. But as far as me, the more I lost when I got older, I lost a little bit of the respect side of what I learned growing up, for sure, because I was, you lose that when you hang around with some not good people, and that's what I had to reevaluate, especially coming here. That's one of the reasons why I moved to Vegas, was I had to make a total shift because I didn't like the person I was and who I was becoming with the people that I was hanging around with. And the only way I could do that was just start fresh. So, yeah.
So I think I saw what Sonny said, but for Lowkk, in the area you grew up in around the time that you did, like how was it different from the other places in Hawaii?
So it was real different because everybody's getting stabbed. At my great time of growing up at Farrington High School, at that time, everybody was getting stabbed or shot. My high school was the capital #1 high school of murders and stabbing and shooting at that year in the 90s. I came out of my math class and it's like a parking structure right in front. So when I walked out, all we heard was pop, pop, pop. We came up to class. The guys was hanging out the car. The guy's brains was blown out.
Damn.
But dude, this is my class, the class, and this is the parking. And there was the cars there was a shooting. And then within that year, it was always Filipinos or Samoans, they're going at it. We had a Farrington High School carnival. Oh, somebody always gonna get dealt with or get shot or stabbed in the 90s.
Yeah.
You can ask anybody or look it up on Google. Look it up on Google. We was right next to EPA. I know you guys know EPA in the Bay.
Yeah.
Our high school was we was like number 2 or number 1 rated in stabbing and killing at that time. Like I said, man, it's like the movies, man. When those movies came out, that's when shit went crazy. That's when shit went crazy.
So, and then for Tiff, what was it like for you? Like, so the question is, in the area you grew up in, like, how was it different than the other places in Hawaii? Because I know a lot of people from Waianae, and every time I see them, like, oh, that's the home of the scrappers or whatever.
Yeah.
And we crack that joke. Tiff, we always make that joke, but it's like kind of true. But like for you, Tiff, like what like pretty much the question is like, how was it different than the other places?
So for me, traveling outside of Waianae was a privilege. So, the only time I traveled out of Waianae really was when my grandparents was alive, when we would go, oh God, by Aloha Tower, it had the fish market. My uncle used to work there. We go pick him up. Or her doctor's appointment at Kaiser. And then to go on top of our Saturday barbecues, we would make sure once a month we go visit all of the family grave sites, right up at Punch Bowl, you know, the Windward side. So that was the only time I really got to venture out of Waianae. And I always told myself that if I got to move out of Waianae, I wanted to live on the Windward side because it was green.
Yeah.
Okay. The only greenery I knew in Waianae was Pakololo. Everything else was brown. The mountains was always burning. You know?
Be nice.
So the one time,
that.
like we went camping one time, Laie side, and just hearing the rain fall on the leaves and the tin roofs, and it was just, at the time I was only 9, but just it was just, for me, it's still a memory I go back to because it just it felt so relaxing. You know, and when it rains in Waianae, it kicks up the dirt and you're like, oh my God, you know. So, but the nice thing about living in Makaha, where I live in Waianae, when it did rain in Waianae, no matter if the mountain was brown, we had these beautiful waterfalls coming down, and especially behind the Makaha Towers. But man, when I was younger, so I'm gonna be 36 this year. So when I was younger, growing up the early 90s, when I would hear about the Waianae violence, I heard about people using their fists. Nobody was using one gun, nobody was using knives. Back home in Waianae was the wild, wild west. You enter Waianae, you are throwing hands. Okay, nobody knows what the fuck a gun is, nobody knows what a knife, I mean, we know what it is, but back home, the people from Waianae, that's not how they operate. Okay, you want to fight, you're gonna use your hands. Anybody who use any weapons outside of that, you just don't even belong in Waianae then. Because if you're gonna use something other than your hands, you don't belong. And then as I got older, I noticed that being stuck in Waianae, then the drugs was happening. I seen people's brothers and sisters, uncles deteriorating in front of me. And even though I was a little girl, I remember when the authorities came in and they moved everybody out of Makua. I was there. I remember I was a little girl. I watched that happen. And to me, when we would go down to Makua, you know, to go, you know, just to go freaking sightseeing down Yokes, like, I thought that was a privilege, you know, and even though those people didn't have homes, it was still nice because it was right there on the beach. So to me, I thought that was everything. I thought that was camping every single day, you know, but then I seen them get cleaned out and moved out. And then the drugs got worse. And then the more guns started coming in. Fuck. I was in 6th grade. And when I first saw my first gun, and I was sitting outside on the farm, and I seen this car roll up in the parking lot real slow, and I'm just like staring, like, I don't know any better. I'm in 6th grade. Who is this person coming in? And this kid just fucking reaches out and I was like, what the fuck? And I drop on the dirt, and my teacher's like, what's wrong? I was like, he just pulled a fucking gun. I'm telling you, it was a fucking gun. I was in 6th grade and had somebody point one in my direction. I'm freaked out. You know, and that was kind of like, shit, there is such things as guns. Other people besides police officers own them. You know, I was real naive back then. I only thought police officers had them. So, you know, so then venturing out, got older, you know, started becoming more aware of my surroundings. I learned about Kalihi. You know, my church was at Farrington High School. You know, I started learning about that neighborhood, and I was like, oh, I gotta walk through this just to get to church. Well, praise God, you know, I prayed my way all the way. You know, but man, it's different every week. I caught the bus everywhere. So when I got older and I spent more time with my mom, she didn't have a car, so we caught the bus. We caught the bus everywhere. And that's how I started to know the different parts of Hawaii and what was where, how the people was. And man, anytime everybody asks me if I go to Hawaii on vacation, where should I go? Don't go to Waikiki. I'm gonna tell you that right now because that's not Hawaii. Like, don't go there. That's not experiencing Hawaii. You want to experience Hawaii, go save your money, rent a car, and go talk to the local people. Go experience Hawaii, but be respectful when you guys go. But yeah, Waianae is a whole different. Waianae is a great place, but it's definitely different if you're not from there. I can say that.
Right.
Yeah. So me and Jay, we work together. That's how I know him. And we have a buddy that I make music with. And he was like, oh, yeah, I want to go to Oahu. Like, so where should I go? And I was like, to your hotel. He was like, all right, where shouldn't I go? I was like, outside. Like, he was like, yeah, I wanna walk around with all these people. I was like, yo, good luck. Like, good luck. Like, watch your mouth when you're out there. Like, that vacation will end very soon. Like,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Hawaii back home is great. It's a great place to go visit different parts of Hawaii, no matter what island you are from. It is great. Just stop being ignorant and talk to the people, respect the culture, respect the land. That's all you gotta do. And then watch them out. Don't use the words what. Don't look at someone says what. That's fighting words, right? Just Hawaii's still a great place no matter what. No matter what happens back home, it's still a great place, and it will always be a great my home and a great place to visit. Just mind your manners when you go back. That's all.
So how about you, Jay? Like, what was it like in the area, or the area you grew up in? Like, how was it different than the other places, or like the reputation? Like, what was the reputation of where you're from?
Before I answer that, I just wanted to add on that what we told our coworker. I was just like, make sure you just don't go anywhere on the west side, and you should be good. like just go to like Kailua or something. You'll fit in there.
Yeah, we're like, yeah, just don't go west. Just don't go west.
But as far as like my hometown, it wasn't really like different towns. It was more like, for us, it was just like high schools, and it was pretty it was pretty bad too, like as far as like rivalries when I was like younger in high school, like freshman, sophomore, and like a junior. But then once I got to a senior, like everybody just mellowed out. Like nobody was going to the parks and like fighting, and then where you get like aunties and uncles come in, like everybody is there making sure nobody jumps in and shit like that, you know. But it was different because everybody knew everyone. So if you had a problem with somebody in school, you had a problem with people's family, or like, you know, they'd be like, oh, you get problems with what's his name, and then like, oh, I know his motto or whatever, let me call her right now. You know, they go talk to them or whatever, and then it's, you better say sorry, whatever, you know. It's just, our town was so small, like to where everybody knew everybody. If they didn't know you personally, they knew somebody that knew you, you know. So that's why the dating game was kind of hard too. You didn't even know who you're related to. Shit, it's rough.
They stay close to the kid.
Yeah.
We talked about that not too long
You see
ago.
cousins
Which
there?
is funny.
So what we had a question in chat, and it was saying, what was your favorite part about growing up in Hawaii? Like overall, like something, like a memory, or maybe it's just overall the culture. But let's start with you, Lowkk. Like what was the best thing about Hawaii, like for you personally? Like till this day, when you think about it, you're like, yeah, this is what I
Man,
still
the best
love.
thing is it's just the family, bro. Just having your family around every time, barbecues, in church, you know, the kongais and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That was the best thing. Like now, at my age, it's not the same no more. Now I'm out here in Vegas. so he's away from home, so not that much family, yeah. But no more that same vibe that I had back then. But just gotta make it work through my kids. So teach them the same vibes that we had from going to church and respecting people and just the love, the family love when you had come home after all your bullshit, come home and home is home.
How about for you, Tiff? What was your favorite part about Hawaii, or just something overall? Whenever you think of Hawaii, like the best thing about it.
Fuck.
The best thing about it is, regardless if you work, go to school, you could always decompress at the beach. The beach was like there, even if you lived up in the valley, the mountains, whatever, you always had the beach. There's something about the ocean that
She'll see this.
it just cleanses you. Don't mind me. I'm gonna say this like, sorry. I'm afraid of deep water, but I will still go and put my feet in the ocean because it's something about the ocean that it calms you. It takes all of that stress, everything, all of the negative emotions it's almost like you're being baptized without being baptized. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys.
Makes sense.
So it's the ocean, and I miss that. Even if I'm afraid of deep water, I miss the ocean. I may have grown up grew up swimming in a pond, but still, it's just that salt water, that just the cleansing of once you go underneath the water and the waves just take you, it just washes you away. Like just everything, every bad thought you had, every negative emotion, is the week from prior, that was my escape, especially when I was little, when I was getting bullied. Like the ocean was my place. It reminded me that life is rough, but it's still beautiful. So that's the ocean. The ocean's, I will never forget the ocean because it's very unpredicting. No.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, it probably have to be just like family. No matter like how much we fight or whatever, all the bad shit that we'd say to each other, like at the end of the day, we'd all come in, family dinner, put all that aside. We have the meanest grinds, everybody bring their own thing. Even though people mad at each other, whatever, talking smack, all you gotta do is get a couple beers in and then we all good.
Gotcha.
Just
Yep.
just like nothing happened. And then no, because even if it's not between like family fighting or whatever, it's just life in general, like especially nowadays, it's freaking expensive in Hawaii. To live out there, to survive. I mean, it's not really even to live. Like most people is just surviving out there, trying to, But a lot of people, like my grandparents, they don't want to go nowhere because that's home. That's it is what it is. They're gonna stay there as long as till they die because that's what they know, and they're not gonna leave. But it's just making it harder for people to live out there. But we still, no matter what, we all come together regardless what's going on, and that's truly what I miss about when I think of home.
What about you, Sonny? Audio working?
Yeah, it's working.
All right, cool.
Can you repeat the question? I'm getting tipsy.
All right. What do you love most about Hawaii?
Love most. Can you remind me of that question in a second? Because I want to touch back on what Tiffany said. Huge disclaimer on what Tiffany said. She is not talking about Sandy Beach. If you get baptized there, it's because you almost lost your life. I was like stuck in barrels of the waves after drinking some Heinekens, and it's like only 15 yards away from me. And I'm like, every time I got up, smash. Every time I get up, I'm yelling at my friends like, help me, I'm right here. And it was like, as easy as it was in a foot and a half of water, the waves were like almost killed me. And I prayed like, please let me out of this. I'll never drink again. I won't be a sinner. As soon as I make it out, like I chugged a 6-pack of Heinekens, and I'm like, I'm going back in. I didn't learn my lesson, but she's definitely not talking about Sandy Beach. Now the question, sorry.
What do you love most about Hawaii?
I felt like when I went there, back to earlier what I'm saying, like I'm not all like gaga over Hawaii, but it's one place like I really felt reborn. I didn't feel like I was back home in Texas where I was trying to find myself and wanting to be wanted. I felt in Hawaii like I was welcomed. And I think that goes back to my own roots of back in Texas where you have to be respectful and you have to, if anything, be polite. And like Tiffany said, if you got nothing nice to say, slow your roll. So when it was in Hawaii, like people noticed that. And like it's different communities, yes, but it's like any other place. Like just come at people right. And if not, just don't even look sideways. Just go do what you need to do, move on. If you don't want to talk to nobody, you don't have to. But I always felt welcomed. And that was one thing that I needed personally. And even like the stories I'm hearing from you are like some things like even being within your own communities with Tiffany's and Jay saying they're the loudest community and Pacific Chief, like growing up for me, leaving Hawaii, coming to Vegas to the ninth island, and even working with you, which, when people say that they're from Hawaii or come from Hawaii, they're welcoming. There's no like, oh, what part? Is like, oh, you're from that side, I'm from this side. It's like a welcoming, not a shut off, like, oh, you're from Waianae. Oh, you lived on Pupukahi. Oh, you're on Oi Street or Fern Street out in McCully. It's more welcoming. And it's just funny that way. But at the same time, I think it's just with the maturity that when you grow, regardless of your age, because I'm 40 years old and I've been hearing ever since I got out of the military there in Oahu, people were like, oh, you're local. What part are you from? And Uncle said it earlier, Pacific Cheese saying Farrington. And people used to tell my story for me that wasn't even my story, saying, oh, you're Farrington High School or stuff like that. And I couldn't even say nothing. They're like, yeah, he's from there. And I'm like, okay, I guess this is a place I need to claim, but without claiming it. So it's just funny how people are, that people were like that for me to like, hey, Sonny, I want you to come over and meet my friends. And I always thought that was a good sign. I never questioned it. I was just like, I'm rolling with this because this is nice to be welcomed rather than where I started from. It's like, I want to go to parties and these are my own high school classmates. And they're like, we don't want you here because you're a troublemaker, and like it burns deep when you're a kid. And when you grow up, you kind of get out of it when you start realizing like Tiff, who went from Hawaii out to Rhode Island and said, hey, I need to be independent and figure things out on my own. Whether you move or not, it's all on you and your perspective of what you want in life. You could be a millionaire, but the more money you make doesn't necessarily make it easier because then nothing's satisfying. And with what Jay was saying, people being like bumping heads, and that's everybody, not just Jay. But I feel like regardless of like what the world goes through, some things are too much, like what's going on now. But if you don't have these bumping heads, everything would be boring. Like relationships, it's not going to be perfect. So some of it is good to keep you growing to be stronger. And then other things are just like, okay, that's really nonsense. You're just trying to be too much. Are you trying to work towards something better or not? So
what we do here on the podcast, on the VybeTrybe podcast, it's me, my brother Chief, and my brother Husky. We always try to spread knowledge. And we talk about things that are probably considered taboo, like mental health, growing up in the islands and just, they kind of just, a lot of things are swept under the rug. And when you try to bring it up, sometimes you get oh, why do you think like that? Whatever. So we always try to, speak a positive message. And then with this series, we try to show the world that, who we are, like, we're, just because we're from different islands, we're still connected by the same water. So all of our ancestors are the same, and how I was saying earlier, like the fact that, we push the culture, like Samoa, Tonga, New Zealand, Hawaii, like it's more than just land, it's a people. And so what's something that you can pretty much tell the youth, like from your experiences, you know, the happy, the bad, you know, the ugly, all of that. Like, what's something that you can tell the youth back home who maybe who went through the struggles the same way as you, and they just, you know, kind of going through it, and you know, when we have an older brother or uncle tell us something, we're like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. But what's something that you guys can tell everybody back home, you know, like advice, you know, pretty much to help them get through whatever they're going through. Let's start with you, Lowkk.
Oh, man, pretty much just be a leader, you know. Just don't follow your friends, you know. They you're just gonna run into something crazy. They ain't gonna be there, but you know. Just be a leader, man. Don't be a follower, and just do the right thing, man. Live your best life.
Fifth.
Um, yeah, definitely what he said. Be a leader. Don't follow. Don't follow. Um, stay true to yourself. Definitely stay true to yourself. And if other people bring you down and make you feel like you're not what they want you to be, let them go. You don't need that. Those are the people you don't need in your life. You know who you want to be as a person. Continue to follow who you want to be. And if you need help, don't be afraid to ask. Closed mouths don't get fed. Ask for help, regardless if it's, you know, you said something earlier, Cyrus, about mental illness, and that's a whole nother story for me because of my mom.
Guilty.
But, you know, ask for help. It doesn't hurt to ask for help. Stop being afraid of. The one thing we grew about being raised back home is that statistic, right? It's not good to ask people for help because it makes you look weak. No, it doesn't. It's because you're struggling just like everybody else and you want to be just that much stronger. It's okay to ask for help. So speak up, ask for help, but also stand your ground. Don't let nobody walk all over you. You know who you want to be. You know who you are. Stop letting people around you change you. That's it.
You, Jay, for someone who's just back on the island, maybe they even want to get out, you know, get off of it. Like you're a testament of that when you said that you know, you wanted to find more, you were looking for more, and you came to Vegas. Like, what's your advice for, you know, all the kids back home, or just people in general, everybody back home?
Like everything they said is just really on point. Like, I know on the islands there's only so much you can do, you know, so getting into trouble is bound to happen, especially with certain people. So of course doing your own thing is always good, and just know, do what's right. Like from your heart, you already gotta know, you like, not just respect's like a big thing. You don't just respect yourself, like mainly yourself, but also everybody else. And as far as like the islands, everybody's got that comfortable, you know, everybody's like good where they're at, comfortable vibes there. Like, you know, they're content with life because, you know, it's a way. You chill on the beach is cool. But for me, I I just didn't see myself getting ahead. Like I didn't want to live like how my family was living, as far as existing, like what I was talking about earlier. They're just paycheck to paycheck, kind of there just because. So I came out here to see a different view on a different life and try to make a better one. And you know, maybe not just, I wouldn't say, maybe just help others to kind of open their eyes, as far as like there's more than just Hawaii. You know, back home, home will always be there. We can go back, like, but there's more than just Hawaii,
What about you, Sonny?
opportunities wise.
Yeah. What about you, Sonny?
So there's a lot to growing up and not wanting to get into trouble, but the real thing why you don't want to get in trouble, first, by not hanging around with the bad groups doesn't make you weak. By not getting in trouble and saying, you know, you got into a fight doesn't make you weak. It actually makes you stronger. It's not until you get older and you realize, or somebody puts it in your head, that when you get in trouble, you get a history. And that reflects on if somebody's going to hire you or not, unless there's people that are family, and it's called nepotism, that get you in a job. You don't want things given to you. You really want to earn it. So that way, like from what I experienced, you don't want people to say, oh, you only were on this live because Cyrus helped you, because he asked you, right? I'm not on this live because of that. He got to experience who I was, and it became a friendship, and it became more than that over the years. If not, I wouldn't be here right now on this live, right? So you and your personality and how you are does reflect on where you're going to go in the future. If you're good, good things will happen, not because you deserve it, it's because you're working for it. So when it comes to not only being good, you want to work as early as you can. If you want a home, guess what? They want to look at your credit history. They want to see how long you've been within a company. And it's not like, oh, I've been with the company that's, even paying as a crazy amount of number that you could dream of. They're going to see like, oh, you've only started for like 6 months now. We need a longevity of years of you working. And then on top of that, you want to save. So it's no problem going out and having fun and having experiences, partying and getting drunk and getting shit faced, messing around with people. You do what you want, but at the same time, look at what it's going to do for your future in the past. You do want to keep a track history of what it is your resume is. You want to keep in contact with these people, because when it comes to references, it does play a part in everything. And people like here in the panel, they connect the dots in the future. You may not know it, but as long as you keep good terms on people and reach out. And I had people to this day from what I met back in 99 when I got in the military, who were, one of them's a cop now, and he's one that hated the military. And he's always reached out like a brother to me. And he's in California. And he's always been like, hey, you're going to go for a job? Like, here's my reference. And one thing I've never liked, what I had a habit of first was reaching out and saying, hey, and this was what Tiffany was talking about, help. Don't be afraid to ask for help. So my different version of this is, yes, don't be afraid to ask for help, but don't make it a habit to put your hand out and say, hey, help me because I need help, when you're not even trying to help yourself. To me, help, now that I've matured and experienced the things that I have only asked for help, which is, I can't even remember the last time when, but I believe that asking for help is when you've exhausted everything that you possibly could do yourself, that you're stuck and you do need help. And just know, when it comes to money, you better be willing to pay it back and know that it does, because you hurt the friends that you take from. Because I've done that with my own family, where it's my last dollar. And my wife's like, hey, I tell her, hey, I gave my cousin this much money. And she was like, that's all the money we have, literally. And I was like, yeah, but she has kids and I'll figure it out. As a man, I'll figure it out. Not we will. That's the difference between, I guess, the diversity of genres. And soon enough, my wife's like, hey, she's not stupid at all. She goes on Facebook, and my cousin's like, I'm tired of this place. I'm going to go party in New Orleans. And I'm like, I just sent you this money that you said the lights were going to be turned off on. And here I am jeopardizing my financial business and my relationship to where my wife's not going to trust me on my decisions. So when it's you, whether you're in a relationship or not, you really have to think about sometimes saying no to people to make them work as hard as you're working. So
That was
Powerful words we got.
somebody
Yeah.
put that.
I've been
What you
working
were saying. But
for a whole
Husky
2 weeks.
Chief, did you guys have questions for the entire panel, or just for anybody here?
Chief, you got anything?
You can even ask Lowkk because he's sitting next to you.
Oh. Oh, Uncle, do you have any questions for anyone? No. Good. Yeah. Just for the most part, it's amazing to hear you guys' stories. Like with this series we've been doing, the Growing Up Islander, how we're going through all the islands and different places where everybody grows up. It's always a blessing to hear like how you guys your stories, like what you guys went through. So I don't really have any questions. It's just a blessing just to sit here and hear you guys talk. You guys preach your stories. Like, it's really a blessing, and it helps me out. Because like my brother said, we grew up here in the States, and like how he's saying, like, we always get questioned as oh, you're not real Samoans, but just to hear you guys preach, and how my uncle was saying, like, how he grew up out there, and
he adjusted when he came to the mainland. It speaks volumes when they say less is more. You guys don't really say a lot, but like you guys are speaking a lot. So I just really appreciate you guys coming on and just telling your guys' stories.
Husky?
Everybody's in Vegas right now, correct? Or in
yeah,
Nevada,
Everybody
Yep.
on this panel is in Vegas.
except for me. Okay, I just
Except for
I just
him.
wanted to clarify this. Okay? I feel like an outsider right now. This is jacked up. The stories you guys tell is amazing. Definitely when we do these episodes, it's always great to hear the background of everybody and to kind of listen to some of the similarities in growing up that Cyrus and myself and Chief went through, even though you're from a completely different place than where we were growing up. So being that you're an adult now, what made everybody like settle into Nevada, where you're at now? Like, what made you come of all the places? You can be in California, you could be in New York. Sonny, you could have went back to Texas. Like, what made you choose Nevada, to call home once again?
Since you said my name, I'll go first. So first of all, for those who happen to be in relationships with Pinais, and be around that tradition, when they put those lips out, like that says everything. you just stop talking and you ask them, what do they want to eat? Where do they want to eat? So for me, with my wife, she's really taught me a lot about culture, not her saying, hey, this is how we do things. It's more of when I mess up, she's like, hey, the candor side of her teaching me about things. And for Hawaii, I don't know, there's so much good that comes from there. That tradition carries over to something I didn't have. Like I said earlier, my tradition was just you work hard and you have a paycheck and you dress up on a dance day and you buy some beer and that's your nice shirt says how important you are to yourself. But in Hawaii, it's a different culture to where it's lean back and you're welcomed. Like I made a mistake. This is a story about Eva. When I lived in Eva, there's the Eva beach, right? And there was an uncle walking by with his belly out and he had board shorts and he just looked so comfortable walking. And I'm just like, I want to feel the way he looks, not with the belly and stuff, but just the way he's walking and carrying himself, And I messed up. I ended up drinking short ribs every day after work. I would go barbecue short ribs and Heineken's. A month later, I was probably like 60 pounds heavier. And now I look like uncle without the long hair. And it was just like, I messed up, like I took the wrong lesson with how you're supposed to look and feel. But it was weird how the culture it brings you in when you're a sponge and want to just relax. You just soak it in. If it doesn't work for you, don't pressure yourself to like, I need to fit in. And that's again, like I just felt welcomed. I didn't feel like I needed to try hard with the background there. And even to this day, I honestly, I just think of Hawaii being my home. Like I want to go back. And Jay said he's from the Big Island, and as small as it is, this might be a place. Maybe he might know my brother-in-law, Carl Elias Ramos, and he ended up moving. He ended up moving to Twin Falls, Idaho. But that place, Jay said, like different high schools, and I'm just like, what is it? Hilo High School and Kona High School? Like how much high schools are on that place, But that's just being a smartass and a mainlander. And a mainlander is probably how Cyrus's brother feels. Everybody's here in the 9th island while he's, somewhere else. But it's just funny the mindset. Mine isn't like how I grew up. It's really like stuck on the 808 on the Aina.
Are you, Jay? What's keeping you in Vegas? Why out of all the places that you could have ended up, like why Vegas?
Honestly, it wasn't for me. It was just kind of a spite of the moment. Like my best friend's been bugging me to move out here. I'm pretty sure I told you this story. Like my other friends had a room that opened up and they were just like, did you still want to move to Vegas? And I said, fuck it. I quit my job and came up here with pretty much nothing. $5,000 and a dream, really. And it's been a little over 4 years now. So yeah, just
That's it.
I don't know.
What about you, Lowkk? Why Vegas? Why Vegas?
It was closer. Well, online, I moved to Texas. I stayed in Fort Hood. I stayed in Fort Hood for
That place is
hella
good.
long. and it was a small town, so I figured
Killing.
Vegas was close to Hawaii, so I moved to Vegas.
Seems like everybody from Hawaii, if they're going to move anywhere, they just come here. So, what about you, Tiff? What brought you to Vegas, or why Vegas?
The only reason why Vegas was because I had family who was already that had moved from Hawaii out here to Vegas, and I was going back and forth between Vegas and Hawaii anyway. But when I made the official move was back in 2004 when I left Rhode Island. And immediately when I moved back to Vegas, I met my ex-husband. We had 2 kids. And really the only reason why I'm still in Vegas is because of my kids. I'm not with, obviously I said ex-husband, right?
Mhm.
So I'm not, my kids are still kind of young. My
For
the
you.
youngest that I share with him, with my ex-husband, is he's 11. And the only reason why I stay in Vegas is because of them. I don't want to be any further away from my kids, but I have plans. Me and my boyfriend now, we're talking moving out of state because we have our youngest daughter. She's going to be 2 soon. And based off of my experience being a parent here in Vegas with my 2 older kids, is there's not enough culture, even though they call it the 9th island. And I'm going to speak respectfully, but honestly, even though they call Vegas the 9th island and we all kind of mesh together, there's something, there's still something missing. The
Still not
city
Hawaii.
is,
Yeah,
it's still not Hawaii. And Vegas is continuing to just grow and grow and grow. And while the city is growing, the city was made to be an adult city. It wasn't created to be a family oriented. Let's just be honest with that. So there's not much family oriented places here. So the only reason why I stay is for my 2 older ones, but we plan on moving. This isn't a family city, unfortunately. Vegas has plenty local people, and I met so many great local people. Rather they be from Samoa, Tonga. I met some from New Zealand, and back home in Hawaii. Let me be real honest, okay? I didn't know what Chamorros was and who Guamanians was until I moved up to Vegas, okay? Let me tell you. And I met great people. Up here. But respectfully and honestly, Vegas is not a place to really raise a family if you really like that family oriented stuff. And I know they say home is what you make it and how you create it. But you guys see it, you see where the city's going right now. It's getting overpopulated and it's getting expensive. And did you guys see where the education rate is right now? Okay, I want a little better for my kids, so
Understandable.
that's the only reason why I stay, just for the 2 older ones for now.
Everybody get to answer that? I don't want to skip it.
Yeah, I got off track though, so I'd like to add to the question and blame it on the alcohol. All right, people. So the reason why I'm in Vegas is because when I got out the military, like I said, I'm from Texas. I don't have any family back in the 808. So my wife finished college. We were staying with her mom out in McCully in her apartment to save up some money. And when my wife was going to Kapiolani Hospital, she applied for a RN registered nurse and she got it. And when they told her she got it, they're like, hey, you got something under that. I forget the terms, but it wasn't a registered nurse and it was actually less pay. And she said, well, I applied for this. And they said, oh, I'm sorry, I messed up. We messed up on our application. It's actually meant for this. After 6 months, you'll get it. 6 months came up and they're like, oh, I'm sorry, we gave it to somebody else. Even after she went to the panel and they promised her, nothing's on paper. And that's an important thing. If you get something, put it on paper. have them write it on paper, if not record the crap out of them. So after a year, we come to Vegas, where her family from Hawaii ended up moving here. And as we're about to board the plane, she gets a phone call. So she steps back, and she just had this look on her face, like pissed, not so much disappointed, just like rage. And that's when you learn, looking at a woman or whoever you're with, you just don't ask questions. You go to your seat, sit down, you look forward, because they might stab you in the neck with some invisible knife. So when I did that, 4 minutes before he even flew off, right, we're sitting down, and she was like, babe. And I was just like, yes, mahal, my love. And she was just like, you want to move? And I was like, where? And she was like, here. And her family's here, right? And 4 days later, I packed up. I was already done with school. I moved here, and we were like, we're just gonna figure it out. We didn't have much savings, and we just took off with it. And weren't even planning on staying here. We're gonna go to, I think, Seattle or something. My wife was stuck on that. She don't have family there, but something told her, like, let's go to Seattle. And it was a surprise when we ended up having rent go up like 3 times in a year. And she said, wait a minute, there's $1,900. Like, we're barely paycheck to paycheck. What's mortgage like if we get a house? So that's what ended up pushing us at the end of 2017, like October time, to look at housing. And I'm blessed and thankful that she has pushed me to say, hey, you need to work. We need to get a home and do stuff. And that kind of recaps on earlier, how important it is as a minor or a young person. And even depending on what your age is, like, to get yourself together, to not put your family in hardship. But that has been one thing. Like, I'm fortunate to have a home now and not have to worry about what other people are going to, but I'm always there for other people. And to let people know, I am a full-time reseller. I left my job from the when. I go to thrift stores, I read stuff on eBay. I am here now trying to spend as much time as I can with my wife. I'm still trying to get my mother-in-law out. So I try to play the music out loud every night and bother her, but it's not working because I think she's deaf.
She ain't
So
going nowhere.
yeah, she ain't going nowhere. And she got a room downstairs, and I made sure of that. So, like, I there's more to us than just the things that we do in work. I'm not just a reseller. I'm an artist, graphic designs. I went to Leeward Community College. I feel like I made a little dent there, to where people at Leeward Community College were saying LCC is a last chance college. And I always felt like that was wrong. Why would you tell yourself that's your last chance? And there's even an article on there that I would tell people, like, no, this is life-changing college. Because I thought I was only good with my hands, and I'm still not good with my hands, but I'm good with art. But I'm colorblind as well. And I don't look at my limitations. I just look at what can I do. And as I grow, I bring people on. And I actually had Cyrus on my live chat, and I bring on other entrepreneurs that I feel is relevant to what they do in the hustle, to help motivate people with what I do, because it's somewhat relevant. So there's a lot to it. And to grow and do things like this, to have a panel, is not just them. Like, little by little you grow, and you get to put other people's story out there, and they get to look at it and say, hey, that helped me get through this. I'm not the only one struggling. I'm not the only one that faced that. And it really does help. It's not to be like, oh, there's people worse than me. It's not. It's to remind you that there's people in the same boat. You just got to balance it out. And even when things are good, shit hits you in the face. And you're a year from now, if you look back to where you are now, if you're trying, you come a longer way than what you realize. So when it's hard, reflect back, take the time to self-care and look at what you got going on. But that has, in general, kept me in Vegas.
Got any more?
No, that was.
Did you guys have questions for us or for each other at all?
I think I know Jay.
You know Jay?
Hey, Jay, you used to do the driveway before the
Driveway?
pandemic.
Like
Driveway.
wash them down.
No.
Oh shit! I thought it was you.
It was you, Jay. Maybe he owes you some money.
Jay just looks like a generic Hawaiian.
Not me.
Damn.
Just having you guys on, like how Chief was saying, like, and Husky, like the fact that we all come from like a different place and we all have a similar story.
Mhm.
Us being from the States and just like vibing and understanding 100% like what you mean, like when you guys say that.
Yeah.
So no, it's like, thank you so much for coming on. It means a lot. I know it was like last minute changes and stuff, but no, you guys really represented for Hawaii.
Respect.
Yeah. So with that being said, yeah, just thank you so much. We appreciate you guys. We'll keep in touch. Definitely. Maybe we might do a part 2, or things tend to happen on this podcast, but no, I don't want to keep you guys for long. I know you guys got things to do. Sonny has to drink, and so does Jay.
I know. I'm gonna drink by myself now. I got 3 more beers.
I'm going to sleep.
And I was like, this is getting cold, man. I didn't know that.
But no, thank you guys so much. Husky, Chief, thank you guys again. It's been a journey. We're gonna do more of this. But yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Is there any is there anything you want to say or give shout outs before we take off? One thing that we do, or we started doing a couple episodes back, is kind of give shout out, like 3 shout outs after we give like sort of your last words on the channel for tonight, and then just 3 people you want to shout out. Lowkk, you want to start out?
Actually, shout out to my car club.
Hey.
Outsiders Car Club up here in Vegas.
You.
I was supposed to be at the shop, but hey, it's okay.
The Outsiders anthem coming out soon.
Oh snap!
Oh,
Outsiders
There
anthem
we
coming
go.
soon. I said it on camera, so it has to happen now.
it has to happen, baby.
Jeff,
And then-
any shout outs?
Any more? You got 2 more at least?
Oh, yeah. Well, everybody who watching, man, hey, stay blessed, man.
Okay.
To everybody.
Shout out.
Yep.
You no, thank you guys for having me. No, seriously, I seen the post on Facebook, and all I did was love it, and then I got invited last minute to join you guys, and I appreciate that meant a lot. I know I have a lot to say, different stories, and doing this for the first time was good, because everybody, like you guys said, everybody has a story, and this was kind of like my get your feet wet, get on get in front of a camera and speak what it is, because I have a lot in my past that I have to talk about, that I want to talk about and share, because there's, like we said, doing this, we all had similar stories, right? And we all dealt with them differently. And one of my main goals is, I know there's kids, there's youth out there, there's other youth out there right now who went through the same thing that, or is going through the same thing I'm going through, that I went through back then.
Yeah.
And there's a way out. There definitely is a way out. A lot of us back then, though, we feel like there is no way out. So we feel like we're in a continuous cycle, but you can break that cycle. And, this experience right now, I thank you for it, because it kind of gave me a little bit more of a motivation of this thought that I wanted to do back then. And I was scared. And so when you asked me to be on, I was like, you know what? Cannot be scared anymore. Just, you see how I was when we was all working together. You know what kind of person I am, but when I'm in front of the camera, I'm shut down. I get super nervous. So this was a great experience, and I appreciate you guys inviting me on and doing this. And I'm waiting for more music. Cyrus, hint. My playlist is getting kind of dry, so
Put it on repeat.
I got you. But
Sonny?
Yeah, only 2 shout outs, because I could only count up to 2, even though my favorite number is 3. So first shout out is Cyrus. I've been trying, like, since I found out his music, and I'm just the type of person, when somebody says they do something, I don't ask them what all they're doing. I try to figure out stuff myself, because being a graphic artist, being in the digital media, being the person that I am, like, I want to find stuff and where people kind of fall short, and it's not to say you're not doing something to make your hurt your feelings. It's to, like, hey, Cyrus, like, you should do this, where's your music at? And I had him on the live to introduce him to people. And I tell him often, like, dude, I want to work with you, and I don't want any pay. I just want the talent. If you haven't heard his music, and there's always people out there that follow you, but they really don't take the time just to go hit their playlist,
Yeah.
or buy a song for $1. Like, what's that? Like that's nothing. If you're gonna support people, like $1, and if you can't afford $1, because I've been in those times myself for years, not just for a month at a time. In person, mention if it comes up. Don't be the weirdo type, like, hey, I got a friend Cyrus, and people are like, I don't know what you're talking about. When it comes up, the opportunity of like music or talent, be like, yeah, that's relevant to this guy Cyrus, and his crew, and he got something going on. Very talented dude, and I've been trying to work with them and do some stuff to where I've been mentioning it even on my lives. Like, I ended up going to there's a thing right here that I keep pointing out. Maybe you can't see it. Hold on. So that black thing right there, it's like $1,000 camera, like an old school camera that I'm like, I could record and make his videos, and he could even take it. And I bought it for like $125 as a reseller. I'm not looking at profit on everything. Some of the profits are like intentional towards friends that
Cool.
mean something to me. So with that, I ended up buying a recorder and other things, the techie stuff. But it's just like, I feel like Cyrus has this natural talent and this voice with his friends and crew that has a message in every song that's different. It's not on idle, like that songs like this song. This song is the same way, it's just a different beat, but it's the same thing. You could tell when you listen to music, especially being at a certain age. And I'm just like, dude, you got so much going on with you that I tell people about it, and I bring them up. I even use it in TikTok. His music's on TikTok. If you look up THT Cyrus, you could add his music. And if people ask, like, who is that? Obviously, it's on the bottom, but some people don't know stuff. But I would say if you got friends and family that are talented, and if you could bring them up, because word of mouth does go a long way. And that's, again, where your reputation comes off. If you're just somebody who they can't trust your word, they're going to blow wind to what good you're trying to do. So stay positive, do the right thing the best that you can. You might get into trouble, but the hard ways teach you the best ways as well. And second shout out is going to be myself, you know, second shout out is going to be to myself. I have a YouTube channel. I'm trying to grow it. And with 1,000 more subscribers, I get to get monetized and get paid for it. And the more I grow, the more I get to share other people as well. And the next time I have Cyrus on there, I want to bring on his crew as much as possible and do more of stuff like that. It's never been about me, because I've been alone too long that I don't want to carry myself. I want to have other people beside me, not in front of me, not in back of me, but beside me.
Thank you for that, Sonny. I did not pay Sonny to say that. So if you guys are thinking,
This is rigged.
I did not pay Sonny to say
Taxes
that.
here.
He's just a really supportive friend, and I love him. Jay, shout outs.
Just shout out to you guys. Thanks for having me on here. Shout out to all the people back in Hawaii still holding it down. And shout out to that guy Jay. I don't know who he is, but he must be a good looking dude, whoever Lowkk see.
Roger.
All right.
All right, guys.
You can find Jay on Las Vegas
Tiff.
Singles.
No, easy.
There's a
on
comment
Table.
isn't in the comments yet asking if you have an OnlyFans.
Oh.
Damn, put me out there like that.
But
No, I
no,
don't.
thank you guys so much, man. It means a lot. Husky.
Yeah. Like these guys are gonna say it too, but we really do appreciate you guys being able to take the time out of your day or out of your evening to show up on the podcast. These these episodes that we do, it's amazing, because the stories that people have to tell, you might never get to hear them. So we're giving people the opportunity and let them spill whatever they want to spill. It's not only is it great content, but you get to understand somebody's background before you get to know them, so yeah, thank you everybody for being able to make time for us. I also like to shout out a girl named Solar Plexus. She's actually gonna be our guest for next week. She's a streamer, dancer as well, not exotic. I think she does like ballet or something like that. I don't know. And then The last one, I don't know who else. I think that's it. I can't think right now. I'm hungry. I got food right here. My Uber Eats just showed up.
I'm hungry too.
Chief.
And
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Oh,
Oh,
we sharing plates here, huh? Let's share plates. Share my
Oh,
plate.
yeah.
my Uber Eats.
Oh, yeah? Oh.
Bar mix over there.
Chief, you got shout outs?
shout out to you guys, Tiff, Sonny, Jay. You guys coming on here, blessing the VybeTrybe with your guys' stories. It really means a lot. You guys are being heard. Appreciate you guys coming on. Appreciate you guys. You guys all know my older brother. Having that friendship with him. Appreciate that. And then shout out to the THT crew. Listen to everybody's playlist. Chef, your boy AC, Magnifi, Gas Studios, and THT Cyrus.
Yep.
Shout out to Big Husky because he's the operator behind all this. He knows the ins and outs of all this. Pause. And yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Shout out to you guys again. Of course, all three of us are always going to say it, but man, it means a lot. Shout out to my lady. She's next door in the living room watching this. So for her, my sister-in-law, and my little sister Binks, shout out to them. Of course, shout out to the Moolah Gang, THT, VybeTrybe, all of us being so much. You guys supporting us, everybody in the chat. Sarah, I see your brother's in the chat too. Shout out to him, Husky. But
Yep.
Shoot, that's what I got.
Okay. Did you want to raid out or just end it? Tell me.
Just end it. Just end it.
End it. Okay.
All right.
All right, chat. Talk to you later. Much love,
Peace.
everybody.
Peace.
Whatever.